Okay, so this is a new video that kind of summarizes all my thoughts on this theory that I call the physics of psychology, the theoretical perspective that all psychological processes can be described and defined as by physics, the science of physics. It's not a reductionist kind of perspective, nor is it a spiritualistic kind of perspective. It's very much something in between that is influenced by the writings, the teachings of and the ideas of Gurdjieff, as well as Richard Rose, but also my own experiences of the whole range of whatever you call it, kundalini, energy phenomena, etc. So the challenge is not so much, well, there's two challenges in the whole process of describing these things. One is categorizing the phenomena correctly, and then number two is actually visualizing or conceptualizing what the phenomena actually look like, what they really are like, because we don't really have models that I think are really useful or viable. We have these subtle energy perspectives that are useless and that mystify everything and that are false. And then we also have these reductionist perspectives that are equally false. And then all the other quantum nonsense is pretty much useless for describing psychology accurately, a physics of psychology. One of the other problems, too, is this traditional thing in spiritual traditions, and this goes for all of them, Eastern and Western, of basically equating, making it like it's one thing, that spirituality and psychology are one thing, when in fact they're two separate things. So I've made a separate video which addresses the question of the spiritual question of enlightenment, self-realization, as well as other videos that are elsewhere on the internet and so on. And I've written things on blogs. Identity, what is it, at blogspot.com. That's where I've written things about the spiritual stuff. And then the physics of psychology at blogspot.com is where I've written the physics of psychology stuff. And you can go to both of those pages and save them as PDFs. I would recommend it. And if you can save any videos from my Nimpo Warrior G channel, I would highly recommend it, so they're stored in as many locations as possible, because someone's been tinkering with my account. I can't say who, so anyway, I had to start fresh. So the problem with most of the descriptions, traditional as well as modern, is modern depictions of psychology get the reductionist, and they don't really describe all the phenomena and the actual experiences that human beings have accurately. But also the problem with traditional perspectives, religious, spiritual traditions, is that they essentially join spirituality and psychology together, and these are two separate disciplines, and they need to be treated separately. So the spiritual thing is one thing, and that has to do with defocusing awareness. Psychology is the other side of it, which is focusing awareness. And so for each, you need, on the one side, an enlightenment methodology for the spiritual and a physics of psychology for the psychological. So all of these drawings are towards that end, and they're extensions of previous videos that I've made, as well as written things that I've made, the Magnetism project, physics of psychology, as maybe some other things as well, Gurdjieff related stuff. But all of this, as I think I pointed out, is inspired by the writings of Gurdjieff, Ouspensky, as well as Richard Rose, and then of all the Yogic and Taoist traditions, of course, and then my own experiences. So this is the first drawing, which I think, let me just run through it briefly, and then I'll go each point. From a physics of psychology perspective of the human being is the psychological forces, substances, structures are all based on physics. So you have magnetism, electricity, light, photons, plasma, gas, liquid, and solid. So you have all these categories, and So what I wanted to do was to kind of start with this picture of the basic structure, which is magnetism, the magnetic structure, and kind of to point out, when you look at all these lines here, you see that they're alternating magnetic spins north and south. And I think this is part of the reason that these kind of structures have been hard to map out or to identify or isolate, because they're continuously alternating north and south along all parts of the body. So the symbol of the caduceus, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's this symbol. You can find it on the internet, and I think that's actually it's used in healthcare related stuff, so on. That is actually a symbol of, I believe, the magnetic spins in the human psyche, or the magnetic currents. So what you have is you have north and south magnetic spins, magnetic currents, clockwise spins and anti-clockwise spins, north and south. Now, they're not strictly aligned along the left and the right side of the body. They're alternating and intertwining in these kind of double helix patterns, in these diamond flows, and in these diagonal flows. Now, and so what you have is three principles: magnetic spins, magnetic currents, and magnetic waves. And so we have to kind of start to map these out precisely in the human being. And a lot of these ideas come back to Albert Roy Davis, Walter C. Rawls, as well as Gurdjieff, no question, and then some insights from Richard Rose as well. Now, the next step is, once you've got the magnetism kind of generally mapped out, or at least some predictable thing where you can experiment it, or measure, test, whatever, you have the electrical currents, electricity. So if you look closely, if you look at, as I've been mapping out magnetic structures, what I've seen is that when you really map them out according to a theory that kind of seems the most logical, you can see that the veins in the human body follow magnetic electrical currents. So pretty much, if you want to find where the magnetic currents and the electrical currents are, well, there's two things. If you want to find where the magnetic currents are, follow the electrical currents. If you want to find where the electrical currents are, follow the veins. So just something to think about, and you'll find the magnetic currents, and then you'll see the true relationship between magnetism and electricity, not only in the human being, but in reality. Now, the next thing is light, photon emission. Now, I don't know if this is a major factor or a minor factor in human beings, but it has to be noted that human beings do emit some kind of photons and light, and it's just something to take into consideration and to maybe measure for, because it may give insight into the electrical and magnetic structure of the human being. Likewise, there's a question of plasma development in and around the human being. Is it something that human beings come with by default? Do we have plasma spheres, plasma filaments underlying all of the electrical, actually following the electrical and magnetic structures and photon structures, and underlying our veins and our the other structures? That's really kind of a question, but it's definitely something to think about. Do we come equipped with plasma, given that plasma is one of the most predominant substances in the universe, or is it something that we can acquire and develop? I'm not really sure. Then you look at gases. The assumption is, according to science, is that we just take in oxygen and that's it. But I don't think that that's correct. I think we can also absorb other gases, lighter gases. I didn't get a chance to look up the lighter gases, but one of them might be hydrogen. Nitrogen, I think it's heavier. I forget what the weights are, but you got carbon, hydrogen, so on, and nitrogen, and maybe other gases that we can breathe in, that either through transformation of sexual fluids or absorption of gases through breathing, that we can bring into our psyche other gases. And then the question is, well, how do those relate to plasma development, photon emission, our electrical structure, as well as our magnetic current flows? So these are all things that have to be looked at. Then finally, the last part of the physics of psychology is just the liquids, which are the blood and fluids, and then the solids, which are, muscles and tissues and so on. So you see, this would be a complete picture of the human being, a physics of psychology: solids, liquids, gases, plasmas, light, electricity, and magnetism. And the sooner that we can, develop this kind of model completely and come up with predictive kind of maps and models and measure these things, the better we'll be. The better we'll understand the psychology, the psyche of the human being, but also we'll understand that not only the physics of psychology, but the physics of reality better. And so, yeah, that's about it. I hope that's useful. I hope people get the basic premise. And, yeah, physics of psychology all the way. Thanks.